Imagine you're standing outside one night just looking up at the sky. It is calm, quiet. You expect to see the moon, maybe a few stars, but instead, something enormous fills the sky, a glowing banded giant, too large for your brain to process. Its swirling clouds stretch horizon to horizon. You rub your eyes, that not the moon, that you bright there unbelievably close, but it dot alone because in this verbally close, but it dot alone because in this version of the universe, all the planets in the solar system, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, even distant Pluto, now orbit at exactly the same distance as our moon. Every single one of them. They don't orbit the sun anymore, they orbit the Earth, and it buer and horrible. It only takes about 3 seconds to realize. Nothing about this can possibly end well. Let's take a moment to understand what the moon in distance really mean. Our moon sits about 384,000 kilometers away from Earth. That roughly 1.25 light seconds. Close enough that you can see its features with your naked eye. Close enough that signals take just a second to reach the surface and bounce back. Now imagine putting Jupiter at that distance. It 140,000 kilometers wide, so big that from this range it would appear in the sky almost 40 times wider than the full moon. Forget about a glowing dot, you could be standing under a sky dominated by Jupiter, red-faced, permanent, massive, eerily still. If you can even still stand, because here's the problem. It's not just about how things look, it's about what gravity says, and gravity says, this is absolute mad. Some of the planets are small and light, like Mars or Mercury. They're not too different from the moon in scale, mass, or gravitational impact, but the gas giant that ton an entirely different store, Jupiter, is 300 times more massive than Earth. Saturn isn't far behind, and if you drop one of these beasts into low orbit right next to our planet, you're inviting disaster. Instantly, Earth no longer controls its own tide. Instead of gentle rises and falls, we get earthquakes, tsunamis, continents shifting, oceans flooding as the moon-sized monsters tug at our planet like it be a bathtub toy. The moon currently causes ocean tides that move billions of tons of water every day. Now imagine that force multiplied by thousands. Fishing boats would be lifted into the air, coastlines would vanish overnight, and that turned just the gravity from one planet. Now imagine 8 of them, and they'm all crammed into that same orbital band. For reference, our moon does not even share its orbit with anything else. It are alone out there. Everything else is either way lower or way high. Because orbital mechanics don't like crowds, orbits are fragile. If you stuff a bunch of massive bodies next to each other, they start interfering. Each planet tugs slightly, pulls just a bit, and over time those small nudges add up. Soon, some go faster, others spiral outward, or worse, they start collide. The whole system collapses under its own weight. But before the violence, let's go back and just imagine the view from Earth. You to see these planets hang in the sky like gauze. Venus would glow like a jewel, bigger and brighter than anything humans have ever known. Mars would appear burnished and copper red, its surface features visibly rotating in real-time Saturn rings. They could be enormous, stretching across the sky like an elegant set of scratches on the universe itself. And Uranus, Neptune, reflecting cold, dreamy light, blue and slow and distant. But suddenly, right above your head, you would need telescopes and a buoy. You could watch planetary weather patterns with the naked eye. Massive storms, spinning vortices, ring shadows sliding across surfaces like cosmic timepieces. But don't get too enchanted because you're standing on a planet that and underseen. A planet whose orbit used to belong to the moon, and only the moon, with all these new neighbors flying around the same orbital path. Collisions become inevitable, even if they're offset by a few degrees gravitational resonance. They'd get closer. Ships passing in the night, then one bad order, one stray shit, and your peaceful night sky becomes a 30,000 kilometer wide explosion. The result, debris clouds, ring systems made of browning down on Earth like showers of fire, and in that chaos, Earth itself would feel the consequences. If Saturn and Jupiter collided near us, the impact would just be visible. It might rip Earth apart from gravitational fury alone, not to mention the scorching waves of heated debris, or the sudden gravitational shifts caused by a moving mass tens or hundreds of times bigger than our own were. But all of this assumes Earth would even last long enough to see it, because even under perfect balance, this system is beyond fragile. Some planets would fall into Earth, others would escape. Some might get slingshotted into the sun. And speaking of the sun, where is it now? If all the planets orbit us like moons, we're assuming either that we no longer orbit the sun, or that somehow Earth is both a central gravitational body and still under the sun's influence. That not possible under any known law of phys. The only way for this version of the solar system to exist is if everything changed, including the Earth's mass. Earth would have to somehow become the gravitational centerpiece of the solar system, more massive than the Sun itself, holding Jupiter in place like Saturn holds its moon. But if that happened, Earth would no longer be Earth. It would have surface or life. It would even be solid. It would be a star. You can hold Jupiter in orbit around you unless you are astronomically massive enough that fusion ignites in your core, and you start glowing from the inside out. So even in theory, there is no version of this setup that makes physical sense unless magic is involved. But let's ignore that. Let's just say, somehow, someway, we made it work. Advanced alien technology, a redefined universe, a software patch to the laws of grav. How would it affect us? It would redefine our relationship to space entirely. Our calendar, seasons, tides, and even language would adapt to the changing sky. We'd name months after planets visibly passing over in. Children would learn the surface features of Saturn the way they learn national flags. Religion, art, and science would all center around what hangs over you. Because it's not imagination in it right there. A living, breathing system of planetary giants, circling like titans, always within reach. Some might even inspire planetary cults or entire civilizations built around worshipping the blue flame of Nep. And maybe, just maybe, we try to go further. Build rail lines launch toward our planetary neighbors, cross the gap, mine the moons, send people to step onto Mars without needing a space miss. The planets would no longer be distant dream. They would be destinies, but we do always live with a kind of quiet dread, knowing that above our heads floats the potential end of the world, multiplied by 8-1 unstable shift. This is the high-risk, high-reward version of the solar sit. It are stunning, it are terror-terran, and it reminds us, sometimes space is amazing precisely because it's far away from Earth. Our planets twinkle gently in the disk, and maybe that distance is a blessing.